The number one on-field moment was 1985, mid-October. We're number one in the nation. Michigan's number two. They had the late, great Bo Schembechler as head coach. Jim Harbaugh was their quarterback. And it was just the week. It's hard to describe the week leading up to the game. The campus was just a buzz on fire leading up to this game. It's a very rare moment. One and two face each other in the middle of a season. We had all the media from coast to coast in town, LA to New York to Chicago. It's Musco lighting. They bring their lights in, and it's a drizzly day. And we have a hard fought back and forth game, low scoring game. We're down 10-9. We go on a 2-minute drill at the end of the game to get it down to the 26-yard line. And our magical kicker, Rob Houtland, comes out and kicks the game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left.
Welcome to the Gallery and Hurley Unfiltered podcast, Iowa Football Rewind.
Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast player to get a behind-the-scenes look that you won't find anywhere else.
All right, tonight we are really excited to have legendary quarterback Chuck Long from the University of Iowa. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck.
Yeah, it's good to be on with you guys, especially former Hawkeyes. Yeah, you guys are coast to coast. I'm right in the middle. I'm in Iowa. I'm in Altoona. So we have all different time zones going on in this podcast, as I understand.
Luckily, Hurley's a night owl, and I'm a go to bed at 9:30 guy. So it kind of all works out. I think you might be right in the middle. So
great to be on with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. So let's just jump right into it. I think first, I'd really like to hear about the Heisman and the ceremony and walk us through that.
First, I should tell you that Bo Jackson won the Heisman Trophy in 1985, but I'm the much better athlete.
By far.
Physically?
Oh, just kidding. It was really pretty cool finishing second to the world's greatest athlete. But back then, it's not quite like it is today. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance today leading up to it. It's like a 2-hour show, a lot of glitz and glimmer and all that in New York City. It's always been big, but it didn't really go full steam ahead until our last game. We beat Minnesota to win the Big Ten championship and go to the Rose Bowl. And then everything back then was in stages. You had your off season, you had your season, and then you had your awards after that. So there was really not a lot of talk about the Heisman until the season was over. Oh, I think I went into the season top 5, and all of a sudden, near the end of the year, it whittled down to me and Bo. And then we beat Minnesota last game of the year. And then from that moment on till the December ceremony of the Heisman Trophy announcement, it just was all about that. And media was much different back then, guys. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media, all that stuff. So you just really heard about it through your SID. At the time, it was George Wine and Phil Hattie. And those guys kept me informed of what was going on. Coach Fry kept me informed that, hey, you're right in the middle of this Heisman race. It could be really close. They were just getting bits of information from across the country. I remember flying over New York City, looking at the city, going, oh my gosh, the biggest city I've ever seen before. And when I landed in New York City, it was just all a whirlwind, wine and dine, all the restaurants in New York City up until we went to the Downtown Athletic Club, which was an old building. I'm in a hotel room there in the same building. And I remember we had to go up to the 40th floor to this hour-long presentation. I'll never forget, I was with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and we're going up the elevator. I had my suit on and everything. And she goes, hey, do you know what you're going to say if you win this thing? And I had no idea. I didn't prepare or anything. So I took a little napkin out and started jotting some things down in case I won it. It just didn't really dawn on me that I was going to win or I had a chance to win. And I'm in this race until the elevator opened up to I think it was the 40th floor of the Downtown Athletic Club, and all these TV cameras were there. And Bo Jackson was there, and all the higher ups of the Heisman committee. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is surreal right now. Just hits you when you get off that elevator. So you go into this room and they seat you right in front of the podium and you sit for an hour and they talk about the history of the Heisman. They show your highlights, et cetera, et cetera. It's like the longest hour of your life. And then the last 5 minutes, they cut to a commercial, and the executive director says, all right, when we come back, we're going to announce the Heisman Trophy winner. And so they cut to a commercial. When they cut to that commercial, my heart was beating right out of my chest. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. My heart's beating. And he comes back and of course, he announced Bo Jackson as the winner. And I was excited to be obviously behind him. He's an outstanding individual, a great guy. And then the executive director threw us in a limousine and said, hey, you have the whole city to yourself all night long. So we went all around the city to all the clubs and had a great time. And then we got on the plane the next day and it was a whirlwind tour and it was a lot of fun.
And so leading up to that moment, did you feel the pressure of that? Or I guess you said it didn't really hit you until you got there, but did you feel that? You guys were having obviously a historic season and we're focused on some of those things too, but talk about the pressure of that part of it.
The pressure, I didn't really feel it until I got in the airplane and flying to New York. And then it was just like, oh, this is surreal. I came from a high school that we were very successful in high school, but we only threw the ball 4 to 5 times a game. I've never had a dream of winning a Heisman Trophy or even being in a race. I was a three-sport athlete. And back then, you just went from sport to sport, day to day. Didn't really think about all that. And so here I am, leading up to that plane trip, you really didn't feel it yet. You just, again, there wasn't the social media and the constant media attention there is today. I only heard what our SID, Sports Information Director, was saying to me, or what Coach Fry was saying, and they were trying to find information out nationally too. But it's a private vote, so you don't know. But it did come down to me and Bo Jackson, and I knew that's as much as I knew. But when I got on that plane to New York City, that's when it started to mount the emotion of it and the surrealness of it. And that's when it just started building up on that whole trip, that plane trip, whatever it was, 3 hours, 3 hours, seeing New York City from above, and then all of a sudden landing. You get in a limousine, and all of a sudden you're doing New York City, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is beyond what I could have ever imagined." And then finishing out that weekend was it was really cool. It was exciting, but very surreal at the same time.
You mentioned high school and kind of that part. Why don't you go back there and talk through some of that? Lead us through your journey to before coming to Iowa and then that part. Go a little deeper than that, if you would.
I share this story quite a bit, but it's really an interesting story. I came from a high school out of Wheaton, Illinois, a western suburb of Chicago. We were a running football team and played great defense. I threw the ball 4 to 5 times a game as a quarterback. So I ran the football. I was 175 pounds, and we ran a lot of option and quarterback run game. Not today's quarterback running game, just quarterback sweeps and things like that. And we had a Hall of Fame coach in Jim Rexilius. He was out of Illinois, but he believed in this system, and we stuck with it. But we were successful. We won a state championship in 1979. I was a junior quarterback, and you guys are like this. I threw the ball. I was 1 for 4 in a state championship game for -3 yards throwing the football. So I didn't get a lot of calls in recruiting. That was my junior year. I was an all-state player my senior year just because we were successful. When we did throw the ball, I completed just about every pass because guys were so wide open. Because
You're like, wait, they're throwing it. They're not running.
yeah, it's like the Air Force Academy. When you throw it, guys are wide open. But we were very successful. And so I was an all-state football player and I was a three-sport athlete. So I finished my senior year of football in high school and went on to basketball like we all did back then. You went from football to basketball to baseball. And I'll never forget, we started basketball practice in December. Again, no phone calls, nothing, and for football. And in the middle of December on a Monday night, on a snowy night. I'll never forget it. I come home from basketball practice and I get the phone call that changed my life forever. It was from the great Bill Snyder. He was my offensive coordinator at Iowa, and he went on to become the all-time winningest coach of Kansas State history and a Hall of Fame coach. But he gives me this call on a snowy Monday night, and I answer the phone, and I thought it was a practical joke. I thought it was my buddy Tom playing a, but he said he was Bill Snyder, a coach at Iowa, and they wanted to bring me in on an official visit that following weekend because they scoped out my schedule and they knew I didn't have a basketball game yet. So I said, okay, sure. And I get off the phone. My dad's standing there and he said, how'd it go? Who was that? I said, well, they want to fly me into Iowa on an official visit. And my dad said, are they going to pay for it? So I said, I think so, Dad. I think they're going to pay for it. I go to O'Hare Airport. My dad drops me off. I fly to Cedar Rapids and I get picked up by the great John Streif, as you guys know him. And we go to the IRP, the Iowa River Power Company. And I had the biggest prime rib I've ever seen in my life at the IRP. But the whole time this weekend, I'm like thinking to myself, do they have the right guy here? What am I doing here? I'm throwing the ball 4 to 5 times a game. They're going after national quarterbacks and all this stuff. And so I'm going through this weekend, and you guys know how the weekends are. You go through the facilities, you eat a lot, blah, 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 and meet the academic people, you hang around your coaching staff. Back then, it was customary for Hayden to sit you down on a Sunday before you leave town, and either he offered you a scholarship or not. And so he sits me down, and I'm wondering what he's going to say. And he says to me that he wants to offer me a scholarship. I was excited. I jumped out of the chair and shook his hand. I said, Coach, yeah, I want to be a Hawkeye. And then I sat down and I said, what does that mean? A scholarship. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm the oldest in our family, and so I didn't know what that was. And he said, we're going to pay for everything, room, board, books, tuition, the whole thing. And I said, okay, that's great. So they put me on the plane. I fly to O'Hare. My dad picks me up and he says, son, how'd it go? I said, well, Dad, I think they've offered me a full ride scholarship. He goes, what does that mean? I said, so I explained it. They're going to cover everything, not a dime out of our family pockets. And he says, have they seen you play, son? I said, I know, Dad. I know it sounds kind of strange, but that's what he said. And my dad had a great sense of humor. He was wonderful. I said, Dad, you got to talk to Coach Fry, because Coach Fry back then would call home. He would call the parents that same night you got home, and he make sure you got home okay, explain everything to the parents. So Hayden did call that night, and my dad got on the phone. He explained everything to him, and he gets off the phone. He's beaming, and he said, son, they've offered you a full ride scholarship. And I still thought, okay, do they have the right guy here? Why are they doing this for a kid that only passed the football 4 to 5 times a game in high school? So anyway, the rest is history. I got offered by Northwestern and Northern Illinois after that, only because I was in state and they didn't want to let an in-state kid go to Iowa. But if Iowa never offered me, they would have never offered me. I always call that phone call in the middle of December of 1980 the phone call that changed my life, because it brought me to Iowa. I've been all around the world because of football, and it's just been a great run, a great journey since that phone call. I always say everybody should write a what if book. What if this happened or this didn't happen? Where would you be today? And if that phone call never happened, I'd probably be still living in the Chicagoland area, raising a family, taking the train every day downtown Chicago like my dad did for 30 years. Probably would have gone to an in-state school like a Northern Illinois or Southern Illinois, an Eastern Illinois or Western Illinois. We didn't have enough money for the University of Illinois, so it would have been something like that. But that phone call changed my life forever.
Had you followed the Iowa program? And I guess where else, if you had your pick of schools, where did you like or where would you want to have gone if you could have chosen?
We just never thought about that in the late 70s. My high school buddies talk about it all the time. You never really thought about college until the spring of your senior year in high school back then. Kids today, they're thinking about it by their sophomore year in high school, junior year. And the top recruits are getting recruited their freshman year in high school. We just never thought that way. So I don't know. I never had a dream to go here or go there. I didn't have a favorite school. Although I will say this, my side of the family are Oklahomans. So I grew up a Boomer Sooner. Not a lot of people know that. We have 4 generations of Oklahoma Sooners in my family, all the way back to my grandparents. Both my parents went to OU, went to the University of Oklahoma. My dad's from Norman, Oklahoma. My mom's from Ponca City, Oklahoma. So I grew up in Illinois from the age of 3 on, but we were Boomer Sooners. It was all about Oklahoma versus Nebraska. Every year at Thanksgiving, the winner goes to the Orange Bowl. Winner wins the Big Eight. Remember the old Big Eight guys? The winner wins the Big Eight and goes to the Orange Bowl. So I grew up with that. So did I want to go to Oklahoma? Not really, but I watched them. My dad wanted me to go to Oklahoma, but they were a wishbone. I was a wishbone quarterback. They had fast quarterbacks. I wasn't very fast. And I grew up watching Barry Switzer teams against Tom Osborne in Nebraska, et cetera, et cetera. But I never really had a desire to go anywhere. I didn't really have a dream school, I should say, to go anywhere. I just said, hey, let's just see where life takes you. Play hard, work hard every day, and see what happens. That's how we grew up.
So what did they see in you? And was it that you were like able to get out of a scramble, that you could run, that you could also throw when you did throw, that your mechanics were good, that you were a leader? Would you ever find out what they saw in you?
I was athletic. I was a 3-sport athlete. Hayden Fry really likes multi-sport athletes. I was really a take a chance kid. So back then, they had 30 scholarships to give per year. They would fill 25 of their needs, the guys they wanted, and they had 4 to 5 left over. And so they would take those 4 to 5 and they go, who else is out there? Don't forget, they didn't call me till December. So they've already locked down their 25 needs or guys, 4 to 5 left over. Who else is out there? Barry Alvarez was actually recruiting Chicago. That was his area. And Barry told Hayden in a staff meeting, hey, check out this Chuck Long here in Wheaton, Illinois. He's an all-state quarterback. He's 3-sport guy. He's athletic. He can run, et cetera, et cetera. So what they did is they took every pass that I threw and put it on one reel. So they studied, hey guys, I'm talking about 90 attempts for a year, maybe.
Oh yeah, I played this basically the same thing in high school, so I know what that's like. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm impressed you guys won state titles. I always thought that if we didn't pass the ball, we were never going to win the whole thing because you could stop the run and it was one-dimensional, it was over. Yeah.
Yeah, we were a multi-dimensional option on offense, and then we played great defense. Passes that we threw were explosive. They were just big plays. So they put all of my passes on one reel, and they evaluated me doing that. And they said, hey, let's just take a chance on him. And they did. They just offered me a scholarship because they had extra ones left over. Now, I will say this. My freshman year in 1981, they didn't think I was the future. They actually went out and signed the top junior college quarterback in the country out of California. And he came at midterm my freshman year, and he was ballyhooed. He was the top kid in the country. And so he had a press conference and everything else. So that was my competition. I ended up beating him out that spring. But what I'm trying to tell you is after they saw me for a fall my freshman year, they weren't real sold on me. So I had to work hard to beat them out, and I did. But yeah, I was just an extra scholarship kid they took a chance on, basically.
It's wild to think that's the scenario. And I'm sure you're modest like the rest of everyone else we interview. So take us to the transition into your first year at Iowa and go a little deeper on that. Talk about learning to learn a different offense, or how to throw the ball more, that part, and how that was for you.
My freshman year in 1981, I was overwhelmed. I went to training camp, Hayden Fry was ahead of his game. He was ahead of his time in college football. He was like the equivalent of the RPO game that you're hearing about and that you're seeing today. His offense was ahead of every offense in the Big Ten. I was overwhelmed. I got to Iowa. Guys, I didn't know how to read a cover two. I didn't know what a cover two was. We didn't see cover two in high school. We saw one defense, run defense. So man to man, single safety, run defense is what we saw in high school every play. So I get to Iowa and, oh, okay, they got quarter half. They have cover two. They have two man. They have all these different things and different coverages. And I'm like, what? I don't know any of this stuff. I'll never forget about the middle of camp. I called my father. I said, Dad, I don't know if I can do this. I'm so overwhelmed. This is so far ahead of what we did in high school. I don't know if I'll ever grasp it. And my dad said, hey, look, son, you have a really good coaching staff there. Now, maybe he knew that because this is maybe the greatest coaching staff ever assembled because 5 of those guys went on to become the all-time winningest head coaches at different universities, all Hall of Fame coaches. He had Bill Snyder, Kirk Ferentz, Barry Alvarez, Dan McCarney, Bob Stoops ended up being a GA. All those guys went on to Hall of Fame status. My dad knew about Hayden Fry coming from SMU and then North Texas. He followed him because my dad is a Boomer Sooner, University of Oklahoma, and he followed all those old Southwest coaches. And so he said, hey, I know about Hayden Fry. I know what he's done. Just trust him and trust the process. They'll get you where you got to go. So I'll never forget having that conversation with my dad. And from then on, I just dived into it. And I actually really studied harder. I stayed up late studying the game. I went over to the coach's office and we had 16 millimeter reels back then, guys, 16 millimeters. So I go over there and study at night till 9 o'clock at night until I fully understood it. And it took me a while, but I remember being overwhelmed my first training camp. And then on top of that, we went to the Rose Bowl. I was just a greenhorn. I wasn't playing much and I didn't play at all. I only played 1/4 of one game that year. And all of a sudden we break the ice of a 15-year stranglehold of Michigan, Ohio State winning the Big Ten and going to the Rose Bowl. And we break through at Iowa in Hayden's 3rd year. And so I'm a freshman. I see all this unfold. And at that point in time, I knew we had something special with a coaching staff. If we're going to the Rose Bowl my freshman year already in Hayden's 3rd year. So I just dove into it, studied it, and trusted the process, and it all worked out.
Could you at that point see a path to the field? Were you thinking that you had a chance to play and could fit into the system and all that stuff?
I did. The one thing, I had good vision. I had a good feel for the game. They must have saw that in me. And with the coaching on top of that, I just became synchronized with the system. But now I would say this, guys, it took me a while. So that spring, I had a really good spring. I ended up being named the starting quarterback after my freshman year in the spring. It just felt good. Everything was falling into place. Of course, I was in the first unit when I got there, and we were playing the number 3 unit. We had a lot of players back then. Ones versus ones back then. Hayden always wanted the guys to make the first team unit feel good. So I ended up being a starting quarterback. I earned a starting job coming out of spring, and I felt good about our system. They had simplified it for me, but yet we were effective. And we ran the ball. We were a good running football team, so you didn't have to throw it all the time. My very first start was at Nebraska in Lincoln. My first year starting, it was extremely hot, about 120 on the field. We were a young football team, and we just graduated a lot of guys from the year before. Nebraska was a solid veteran football team. We had upset them the year before, 1981, 10-7. It was a shock. It was a national shock that we beat them. Anyway, they had revenge on their mind, and we had a miserable day. It was the worst day of my life as a starting quarterback. We were getting beat 42-0 in the middle of the 4th quarter. I threw interceptions, threw the ball on the ground, got sacked. It was terrible. I called a timeout in the middle of the 4th quarter. And I walked to the sideline, and Hayden is livid. He said, Charlie, he always called me Charlie. He said, Charlie, why are you calling a timeout? Let's get this game over with. Let's get out of here. Keep the clock running. Well, I threw up all over his white pants and white shoes. Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I puked all over him. And he was so mad, he benched me on the spot. And we lose the game. And I'll never forget, I had 20 family members there. I had both sets of grandparents from Oklahoma, and they grew up with the Oklahoma Sooner machine, right? And I go out, I clean up, I get outside. My little old grandmother, bless her heart, came up to me and said, Chuck, you don't have to play this game of football if you don't want to anymore.
Oh, God.
She wanted me to quit on the spot, guys. So anyway, I said, Grandma, give me a little break here. It'll get better. It'll get better. So that year, we scratched and clawed to 7-4. We just found a way to get there, but I never really felt comfortable as a starting quarterback. I felt like I was still learning on the run, and they simplified it enough where I felt good about what I was doing, but I still felt like I was not totally comfortable as a Big Ten starting quarterback yet. We go 7-4 though, on great coaching, good defense, solid offense. We go to the Peach Bowl. We're playing Tennessee in Atlanta, Georgia, and we lit it up offensively. We lit it up throwing the football. We threw for 320 yards or whatever it was. And that was the moment, guys, that I felt like I was a Big Ten quarterback. After that game, I felt comfortable that I could make it in this league. But it took me all year to feel that way. And I did not feel that way all year until the finish of the Peach Bowl.
I think you said in your book too that something about the Arizona game that year. You guys were struggling a bit and rallied that, and that kind of got your first win, right?
The Arizona game, we were 0-2, so we lost to Nebraska. I threw up all over Hayden. We lost the next game. I did not play the next game. It was against Iowa State, and Iowa State beat us at home. And Hayden just said, let's put Chuck in there, let him sink or swim. Let's live with the kid and go with it. And so we go down to Arizona 0-2. It was a really hot night, and they had a good football team, and we beat them. We shocked them. I had a good game. I think I threw 2 or 3 interceptions, but we still won the game. I ran around a little bit, threw the ball a little bit. I'll never forget the jubilation in that locker room after the game. We were just, oh, it was so, the locker room excitement after that win was extraordinary. It was just so much fun. But I felt good, obviously, about the win, but I still hadn't felt great as a starting quarterback yet, as I mentioned before. But that was a significant win. It gave us confidence that moving forward that we can win big games. We can win on the road. We have a chance. And so with the magical coaching staff that we had and the players around us, we knew we could do something really special. And again, we went to the Peach Bowl and we won it. First bowl victory since the 50s for Iowa. That year was very significant and a building block for Hayden Fry and his staff and for our program.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think people forget sometimes the process to get to victory, right? They think things happen overnight and it's not a process. Talk about what it was like in the state of Iowa at that point when this long drought of kind of subpar football and all of a sudden you guys start really doing well. I can't imagine, like, when we were there, we were an average top 15 team and it was still insane. So I can't imagine being at the height of excitement of that.
It was because we were part of the building blocks of Iowa football to resurrect it from the 50s. History of Iowa football, they were great in the 50s and went to Rose Bowls and won them. And then went on a 20-year drought, just struggled. Bottom program in the country. No one really wanted the job. Not a lot of people know this, but Hayden was their third choice. Bump Elliott was the athletic director at the time, and he had the first 2 choices, turned him down. And then he went to Hayden, and the rest is history. So it wasn't a coveted job by any means. So Hayden took this job and just instilled hope in the state and instilled hope in the program and gave everybody a purpose and something to root for. And be a part of that was just really extraordinary. I'm 62 now, and the older you get, it's just you look back on that and go, man, it was really extraordinary. At the time, when you're a student athlete, a player, you're not thinking about that. You're just day to day, and what do I have to do next? And practice is coming up, blah, blah, blah. But as you get older, you think about, gosh, the work and the effort that that staff had to do to get us to that point, very extraordinary. How they did it, what they did, and the chemistry involved with that. And so, yeah, to be a part of that. And I remember campus was just buzzing. It just became alive, especially after that Peach Bowl victory. I'll never forget. You go to a bowl game and you go back to your hometown for a couple of weeks and then come back and start the spring semester.
It doesn't matter if you're from Iowa City, Sioux City, Reading, Bluegrass, or Mason City. Wherever you call home, there's a place for you at the Summer Iowa Games, and each athlete follows their own road to get here. Whether you've been competing for decades or just fell in love with your sport, we welcome Iowans of all ages and abilities to come together in celebration of sportsmanship, hard work, and friendly competition. Believe and achieve this summer at the Iowa Games, presented by Grinnell Mutual. Register today.
I remember coming back mid-January from the Peach Bowl victory, and the campus seemed like it just changed overnight. There was just a buzz in the air. All of a sudden, students were right along there with you, enjoying it, patting you on the back, as they say, guys. It was just so much fun from then on. I met so many people that went to Iowa from like the Chicagoland area or elsewhere, say, hey, I went to Iowa because you guys were good in football. I just wanted to hang around that. And I had a number of people saying that to me over the years, is why they went to University of Iowa. People want to be associated with fun, excitement in the winter, and that's what we became. But you just didn't realize the hard work putting into it by the staff. Those guys were tireless. They worked nonstop. They 7 a.m. to midnight every day. They sacrificed family time to do it, just to try to turn that thing around and give people in the state of Iowa something to cheer about. But it was great being part of the building blocks of Iowa at the beginning. And then, like I said, coming back off that Peach Bowl victory, the campus, it just really permeated through the campus where other sports on campus became good. Wrestling was already good. Track became good. Baseball was good. Basketball was starting to light it up. Everybody fed off each other in a great way.
It's amazing how sports can change a community like that, and a university as well, for sure. Take us into that next season then, if you would.
The next season, we were confident. We were hot offensively. We started off in a great way. We beat number 3 Ohio State at home. It was one of our great victories at home. Not a lot of people talk about that. That was a huge victory. They had just gone down to Oklahoma and beat Oklahoma, and then they're up to number 3 in the country. I think we're 8th or 9th, and we beat them in Kinnick. And they had a really good football team. And all of a sudden, we're right there, top 5. We go down to Illinois and got thumped. We got beat 33-0 in Illinois with Jack Trudeau as their quarterback. They ended up going undefeated in the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl. They lost it, but they lost to Rick Neuheisel at UCLA. But we had a really good year offensively. We had a good team. We were 9-2, went to the Gator Bowl, and we lost to Florida. And they had a really good football team. But it was one of the coldest bowl games in history in Florida. It was like minus 10 degrees wind chill in Florida. They had this cold spell. And anyway, that was our Gator Bowl year. And then the next year was our Freedom Bowl year. 1984, we started off hot. Then we had some injuries. Our star running back, Ronnie Harmon, broke his leg. We had a number of guys get hurt. And we just kind of had a tough ending to that year. We ended up going 8-4 because we played at Hawaii and beat Hawaii out there at the end of the year. We had a younger team, but Hayden knew that ahead of time, so that's why he scheduled the game at Hawaii, thinking we may not go to a bowl game in 1984. Let's go to Hawaii in case we don't go to the bowl game. We ended up going 8-4, going to Hawaii and beating them. And then we got invited to the Freedom Bowl, the very first Freedom Bowl in Anaheim, California, and played Texas. And Hayden was from West Texas, probably had the dream of being the University of Texas head coach someday, which never happened. And so he wanted to beat Texas really bad. This was the Hayden Fry bowl game. And we did. We whooped them pretty good, 55-17 in Anaheim. That was the springboard for 1985, which 40 years ago, this year, we won the Big Ten championship. But coming off of that Freedom Bowl, we had everybody coming back. And we knew as a football team we had something special if everybody came back, and we did. Here we are in the offseason of 1985, and we know if we kept working hard, if we stayed diligent to our purpose, we knew we had a shot at the Big Ten title, and we did. We won it. But it was that Freedom Bowl victory that showed us that against a really good Texas team, Texas had all the athletes. They had number one draft picks off that team, and we beat them handily. And so we knew we had something special in 1985. So that's how our order went when I was a player there. But it went Peach Bowl, then went Gator Bowl. We had a really hot year in the Gator Bowl year. Then the Freedom Bowl, we tailed off at the end of my 1984 with injuries. And then we got hot in 1985 and won it all.
Speaking of Ronnie Harmon, he said to give you some shit that he said that you were Coach Fry's favorite, or that's what he thought. We spoke to him last week, so he's got to give Chuck some shit about being Coach's favorite.
Hayden loved quarterbacks, number one, okay? But Hayden loved Ronnie Harmon, too. Ronnie was a special player. When I was a player there was two guys that stood out above the rest of all of us. Andre Tippett, he was a senior when I was a freshman. He went on to become not only a college football Hall of Famer, but a pro football Hall of Famer for the New England Patriots. And then Ronnie Harmon. Those two guys were above the rest athletically. You always think about those guys on your teams that were like that. Those were the two that you watched or you looked on the field and go, who are those two guys? Those are the two. But Ronnie was one of those guys that he's a receiver for 2 years, his first 2 years, great player as a receiver. And then he went to running back after that. Who does that? He could have been a great defensive back, too.
Yeah, and being frustrated being a receiver for 2 years, he didn't really excel. I was
he
like,
was-
God, you did well for not liking receiver. I was like,
He's a
it's
great
impressive.
receiver. Yeah, great receiver.
Can you go into a little bit more on your relationship with Coach Fry? And I also tie that back to when you joined the staff with our team, because everyone we've talked to said they talked to Coach Fry, but not real personal. So as a 4-year starter, we're trying to see how often did you talk to him? And then how did that change when you became on his coaching staff later?
Being his quarterback for 4 years, I talked to him quite a bit. He's a quarterback guy, and he was always close to his quarterbacks. He's like a second father to me. He probably talked to me obviously more than any other player because we had to. There was a lot of meetings with him and just going over the game plans and things of that nature. But he kept it very professional. He didn't want to show favoritism all the time. He didn't want to do that, and he didn't. So he wasn't like all chummy with me all the time. I always felt there was player and coach. It didn't become like we were best friends. And I think there's a difference there. I think there's a lot of coaches out there become friends with their players, and I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. You want that coach-player relationship, and he always kept it that way. That was first and foremost, until I was totally done at Iowa, and then we became friends. Now, when I became a coach for him with you guys, it was always head coach and assistant coach. And he treated me like everybody else. There was no favoritism, nothing like that. So, yeah, he chewed on me too. If he didn't like the way I was recruiting or didn't like the way I was coaching, he got after me. just like he did with everybody else. He never showed favoritism towards me. And I really respected him for that. And I wanted him to be that way. I wanted to grow as a coach. I didn't want him to sugarcoat anything. I didn't want him to, oh, everything's okay. I wanted him to push me as an assistant coach. Hey, Chuck, you got to do it like this. You're not doing it like this well enough. Or you got to do this better. You got to do recruiting better. You got to say this when you're in the home. I wanted to learn and I wanted to be pushed by him. But yeah, there was moments, man, when he took a bite out of me, and he did it in front of the staff too. But you don't like it at the time. But when you walk out of the room, you realize what he did and realize he was right. And you learn from it. You learn to grow from that. But he was so good and masterful at, oh, how should I say it? Just masterful at growing you as a player, growing you as a coach. He knew which buttons to push. And not every player has the same button, or not every coach has the same button. But he would get to know you so well that he knew which button to push for you to get you motivated or get you better as a player or as a coach. What I learned the most from him from a coaching standpoint when I was coach for him is how to recruit, how to treat players, getting to know the families, the little details involved with that, the personal touch. That's what he was really good at.
And do you think that's why he was able to produce these other guys that did really well? Is that was like the main key ingredient that led to their success?
Absolutely.
And your success, obviously, too. Yeah.
Absolutely. He just knew how to recruit. He knew how to treat families and players, and he had the personal touch. He'd send you a personal note. He'd call the parent and tell the parent what's going on with their child. He was great with names, as you guys know. He just knew names. He'd meet somebody and he knew his or her name 3 hours later after meeting them. And it was uncanny how he was like that. And he had a good sense of humor. He just made you feel good about yourself. I remember when I was coaching for him, he always said this. He said, men, always try to end on a positive with your players, no matter if it's a tough loss or they didn't play well. Try to put your arm around them and get them to be confident again. Try to give them a positive before they leave the locker room. I'll never forget learning that from him. That's what he was good. And when I look back as a player, that's what he was all about. That's what that staff was all about. You always left the locker room with some kind of positive, even on a negative day, even on a bad practice day or a loss. You always left the locker room with a positive.
Yeah, I think the average fan doesn't realize the scrutiny that players go through of the kind of corrective, constructive criticism that at times can be leveling, right? You're like, oh man, this is really straight to the point. But then you get to that, I think, mindset of, am I making that standard or not? I guess that's probably what he did, was set that early on, right? Of here's our standard and you're either above it or below it or at it, I'm sure, a bit to that degree. Talk about some of your best on-field moments.
The number one on-field moment was 1985, mid-October. We're number one in the nation. Michigan's number two. They had the late, great Bo Schembechler as head coach. Jim Harbaugh was the quarterback. And it's hard to describe the week leading up to the game. The campus was just a buzz, on fire leading up to this game. It's a very rare moment. 1 and 2 face each other in the middle of a season. Usually it's at the end of the year. And we had all the media from coast to coast in town, LA to New York to Chicago. And we get to the game. It's Musco lighting. They bring their lights in, and it's a drizzly day. And we have a hard fought back and forth game, low scoring game. We're down 10-9. We go on a 2-minute drill at the end of the game to get it down to the 26-yard line. And our magical kicker, Rob Houtland, comes out and kicks the game-winning field goal with 2 seconds left. We call it last timeout with 2 seconds left. And they had 2 timeouts. They tried to ice him twice. As you guys know what that's all about. Rob just had great confidence as a kicker, and he went out there and he basically turned around to the sideline and said, guys, I got this. And he drilled it. And I'll never forget the elation and emotion of that crowd. It was never matched in my career again. And I coached in college football for 20 years. I was at Oklahoma when we won a national championship in 2000. Played in the NFL for 8 years and had some great crowds there, but it was never matched again in my lifetime. The elation and emotion of that crowd when he kicked that winning field goal with 2 seconds to go to beat Michigan 12-10. That, by far, gentlemen, is the moment for sure.
And one of the only times you've heard of a player blowing their knee out because of the celebration. Didn't the holder blow his knee out because it
Yeah, Mark Vlasic was our holder, and he hurt his knee. They piled up on him, and he couldn't breathe. We tried to get everybody off him, and we did. But yeah, he hurt his knee at the bottom of the pile. But yeah, just that was a crazy moment there. But it's one of the few times, if not the only time, that the fans stormed the field. That wasn't in vogue back then, a storming the field. But the fans did it that game, and it was just crazy. It was mayhem on the field.
I suppose those were the days too when they would rip the goalpost down and try to take him out of the stadium.
Yeah, they didn't do it that much back then. You guys were more of the era when they did all that. But they tore down the goalpost. They would hang on the goalpost and tear it down, but they never carried it out of the stadium. They always just tore it down. That game they tore it down, but they never carried it out.
Do you want to talk about the weekend, the 40-year anniversary of that season, and what that was like to see everybody and reminisce on that season and your whole career?
The 40-year reunion was great. It was a couple weeks ago, homecoming. We had about 75 guys come back. Some of these guys I haven't seen in 40 years. So it was really a cool moment to see everybody. And I will say this, I didn't know what to expect. We were on the field. They introduced us at the beginning of the second quarter on one of the end zones. They had our Big Ten championship trophy, guys, and it was heavy. So I was a captain, was me and Hap Peterson, Mike Haight, Ronnie Harmon, and Larry Station were the captains that year. All 5 captains showed up. We were all there. And they gave me the trophy to carry. It was too heavy. I had to ask Mike Haight to help me out. So anyway, I'm just a skinny, weak quarterback. So I said, Mike, you got to help me out here. When we were on the field and they introduced us, we all got choked up. We got choked up. The crowd was deafening. As you guys know, they finished that north end zone. That north end zone is where we were, and it was loud. And it was very deafening, and it just, yeah, it was an emotional moment for all of us. The mind plays tricks on you, right, guys? Before this moment, 40 years ago to me seemed like a lifetime ago, like it was another lifetime. But that weekend made it seem like it was yesterday. So when we were on that field, it just felt like it was yesterday. And that's why I think we all got emotional with it. We had a great moment there. We had the trophy with us. We had 75 guys. We ended up having a great tailgate before that and had a party afterwards. But it was so good to catch up with everybody. And we said, of course, we say, hey, we got to do this more often. We all hoping we can make it to 50, guys. Maybe we can make it to 50. But that'll be a great moment if we can.
Yeah, I think it was entertaining watching you guys revert back to 40 years ago, those relationships, and like you see like the 18-year-old kids come out at that party, which was fun to watch. Those times and memories that came back for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was great. Great memories. And it just, yeah, again, very surreal. I think back about the phone call that changed my life forever in December of 1980, and where would I be without that phone call? And I'm so glad it worked out this way. And I got a chance to play at Iowa under the legendary Hayden Fry with that wonderful coaching staff. And as you guys do, we tell these stories and we embellish, we add to it. We tell the same stories all the time. People around us say, oh, Chuck, I've heard this story 50 times, but they want to hear it again. And that's the fun of football. That's the fun of being on a team.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for being part of the building blocks of the program. We were able to come years later and have the fruits of that labor of you guys and the work and the ethics and all those things that you guys put in. So thank you on that part. We're lucky to have you as part of our network and part of our teammates of different eras. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
You know, you're welcome, but it's you guys. It was fun to be a part of coaching in the mid 90s and coming back to my alma mater and coaching young guys like you. And then now getting to know the guys today that are playing there. And I'm an old timer now, and it's fun to watch those guys too. But to have two head coaches in 45 years, and we know both of them, and incredible Iowa run, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to close up, I'd want to ask you what advice you would give to kids today. Like, what have you learned through everything you've been through of the coaching, the college level, the pro level? You've seen and done a lot. So if there's any advice you could give, that'd be great.
If you throw up on your coach's shoes, keep going. Just keep playing. Don't let it get you down. It's an old cliche. You have to hang in there. You have to keep working. My mom always told me, Chuck, the reason why you're successful is because you had desire to play. You have to have it from within to be good. And if you have it from within and you work hard at it, you're going to be successful. I would say this. Yeah, Division I, Power 4 is not for everybody. But I always said this to guys in recruiting or kids. If you have a desire to play any sport and you want to continue that sport, there's a place for you. You may have the dream growing up of playing at a big time university. That may not happen. But if you have the desire to play and have the passion to play the game, there is a place out there for you. It could be Division II, Division III, it does not matter. There's a place for you, is what I used to tell kids. If you have the passion, you'll find a place to play. And it may not be what you dreamed about as a kid, but it still can be a really fulfilling lifetime achievement, no matter where you go and what you do, if you have the passion to play, but you got to have the passion. And if you have that, then shoot, who knows where it could lead. And when you go play or when you go pursue that dream, you never know where it's going to lead to. You just don't know. I always say, take it day by day. I was never one to really look too far in the future. I just lived for the day, worked hard that day, and see where it led. Bill Snyder always said this, my offensive coordinator, and I always said, be where you are. Be where you are, meaning wherever you are, be that. Work hard at where you're at, and then good things will come to you from that.
I think that's a great spot to wrap up. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
All right,
Great
coast
seeing
to
you.
coast, guys.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys again.
Yeah,
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, guys.
All
All
right.
right, take care.
Thanks, Coach.